Welcome to I Care About You, the podcast where we talk about how to make the most out of our creative, wonderful, and sometimes messy lives. Today we welcome Sherry Richert Belul, founder of Simply Celebrate and the author of Say It Now, 33 Creative Ways to Say I Love You to the Most Important People in Your Life. Sherry is also the co-host of Heart Wisdom Panel and the co-founder of Secret Agents of Change Kindness Project. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, Town & Country, and the Wall Street Journal. So without further ado, please welcome Sherry to the pod.
Hi, and welcome, Sherry. I'm so happy that you're here today.
Oh, Juliana, it's lovely to be with you. I can't wait to see what happens.
I know, me too. There's so many things to talk about, and there's so much to get to. So let's just jump right in.
Okay.
And I've told everybody a little bit about you, but I want to kind of explore this whole topic of joy as a practice and what that actually looks like. Because so often, at least for myself, I always wonder, okay, am I bypassing something horrible that's happening and just going straight to this, toxic positivity or whatever I think it is, versus having a practice of joy? So what do you do just daily, all the time? What is your practice? And then what happens when something steps in the way that kind of pushes you off that track?
I love you so much. I love you for starting off. No, really, because it's like, oftentimes people hear the name of my company is Simply Celebrate. I talk about joy as a practice, and everything that I do, has a foundation of anxiety and depression and my own sort of like leaning into the dark quite a bit. And so when I talk about celebration or when I talk about joy, to me, that includes everything, so I never want anyone to think that they need to bypass any feelings. Now, sometimes, and, I know you know this and, you've talked about this, but it's like, sometimes there are stories going on in our heads that may not be helpful or supportive or loving. And that's different. So when I talk about joy as a practice, that's one of the main things I work with all the time, because I, for whatever reason, happen to have come into this planet with a lot of, you shouldn't have, why did you do that? Why couldn't you? Why didn't you? And that was actually what led to a lot of my depression as a young person. So one of my main practices is awareness, mindfulness, meditation, paying attention to, is it coming from up here as a voice, or is it a pain? Is it a grief? Is it a loss? Is it something that is a melancholy that I want to be with, and let pass through me, versus a story that I just, I know that it's actually not coming from my real self. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. It's like that internal dialogue you have that has been generated from your experiences or what you know, what you think you know, and you've kind of decided it's a truth, but it's not necessarily, it's not a truth. It's just a thought. Yeah.
Yes, don't believe everything you think.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh. Yes, I was just thinking about that yesterday. I was like, you have got to get rid of this, this thing that keeps coming up for you. Where did it come from? Why is it there? Like, is that so what do you do when you feel like, is this a thought, or is this something I'm really grappling with, or is this,
Yeah, I love that. What a great question, because that's exactly what I was going to say is I try to bring awareness first and foremost. Oh, something's going on, and then my whole practice for the last 30 some years has been a moment to moment to moment practice. Mm-hmm. And I have a whole story we don't need to go into, but just to suffice it to say that it's like I look for pinpricks of light. The first thing that I do always is to get in my body. And for instance, I just happened to glance outside while I was talking to you, and we have a beautiful acacia tree out there. Oh. It's purple and it's got some wonderful tealish sort of leaves. When I am just totally present, that was a little pinprick of light for me, right? Or now I'm looking at you in your eyes. You have these like sparkles in your eyes. Like that's a literal pinprick of light. And when I turn my attention to a moment of being present to something that sparkles or glitters, is a little bit of a light, that brings me home. And in that moment, I get information. That's all the only way I can say. It's like I kind of know then in that moment of being present in my body, I'm feeling sad. There's something happening. And how do I bring joy to sadness is a question I ask myself a lot. Like right now, I have a beautiful butterscotch kitty who's really in her final days on this planet. I've loved her. She's been a part of our family since she was a kitten. And it's sad. It's painful, right? There's no getting around it. It's a loss. And at the same time, it's a joy. When I pick up her little teeny tiny bony scrawny body and just like hold her and she purrs, you know, that's joy. It's a quieter joy than other joys, but it's a practice of kind of just doing just a little bit of a reframe. I'm not trying to ignore the sadness, but I'm trying to also say, well, I'm sad because there's so much love.
Right. I love this. I love this so much because I have never thought of joy in these moments like that. You tend to think, oh, this is sorrow, right? But in this sorrow are these pinpricks of joy. And I just, oh my God, I love that so much. I'm going to write that on a Post-it and put it on my desk. And I love that because you tend to just think it's this one-dimensional thing, right?
Yes. And, I feel compelled, if I might just tell you the story of how this came to me, because it feels like it's pertinent to what you were just saying. Mm-hmm. And it's really, I feel like it was a grace. It was a gift to me when I was really, really, really depressed. Right. And I know, we've talked about that in different contexts. And I wanted off this planet because I just didn't want to be here without all of that suffering.
Right.
And I was led to a meditation class, pure grace. Right. But the other thing that happened is when I went into that meditation class, it felt to me, this was how my whole experience was like an iron wall just closing in. That was like my whole life experience. Closer. And you know how you focus on an in-breath and an out-breath? Mm-hmm. I took an in-breath and I literally heard a kind of voice in my head, probably for the first time ever, that said, I don't want to kill myself.
Oh, wow.
And I felt it. Like, I felt that breath. I felt the relief. I felt the moment. And I don't know why, but the visual came to me of like a pinprick of light in that iron wall.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I wanted to tell you that is because for me, I had thought that everything was either this or that. Like, I'm depressed. It's an iron wall. There's nothing. But the minute that life gave me that little pinprick of light, like one pinprick of light is everything in the dark. I suddenly was like, wow, I can be depressed and have a moment of joy. That was mind-boggling to me.
Right. You can hold it all if you allow yourself to hold it all. And yeah, it's in the allowing. I feel like we don't know. Gosh, your experience so reminds me of that Rumi quote where, your wound, your cracks are where the light comes in. Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And, gosh, I feel so much compassion for that young girl that I was, who everything, she just thought she was depressed. And that was the story. And there was nothing more. And for years, I mean, it's now been a few decades since that experience, but that has been like, I've just thought, well, if I could have that one moment where something felt different, I felt a moment of light, maybe I could feel another one, right? Like that became my whole, I still do that. Like I still live that way because for me, it's just been too much to ever think in bigger terms, a happy life or a happy. Now, I must say, practicing meditation for 30 some years and dance and yoga and meeting people like you, it is true that I feel like I've been gifted with a happy life, but I still don't, I just still think moment to moment.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's such a valuable tool for the people listening to this podcast because, and beyond, like everyone, because we get so overwhelmed with, especially all of the social media, we're constantly barraged with, like, we're so overwhelmed with, we need to get to this happily ever after place right now, right now. And what is that? And that it doesn't even exist, yet that is somehow our goal instead of seeing it as this journey and all these moments of joy and sorrow and everything that comes along with it.
Oh, I love the way you just said that. Was so beautiful. I always imagine it like a necklace, like the beads all look very different. And like some joy is big and glittery and it's like a big, light filled, right. And it feels so happy. But other joy is quieter. And, I think about again, I just had some deaths in my life recently. But when we're connecting with someone that we love, who also loved that person, there's a joy there. We start to tell stories and we laugh and do you remember when, and we give this meaning. And I think meaning is also a synonym for joy. Mm-hmm. that it's like we give a meaning to our lives and the people we love, even when there's that sadness all, mixed in.
Right, right. It's so true. I definitely felt that way when um, both of my parents were passing, but my mom particularly because she was the first, and just feeling like there is this space of developing meaning and that allows you to let all the joy in when you're just, how am I ever going to get over this, and all the things that come with a parent passing, whether it's the best relationship you've had with them or a challenging relationship or a horrible relationship. There's so much there that you don't realize. And when you don't have the opportunity anymore to work with those or look at those, you're kind of just left with this. I don't even know how to explain it. For me, I always felt like there's just this crater, dark crater there now that I could never, and there's my regrets and there's all the things I could have been a nicer daughter and I could have done all these other things and I could have really honored the life that was there instead of being like, oh, you're calling me at the wrong time. I need to, I'm in the middle of this or that, or, what, all those things, all that stuff that comes to you. And it was in the creating meaning in our relationship to me, like redefining that, remembering that, re-seeing that, that allowed me to kind of move on.
Ah, well, and well, we have a mutual friend, right?
Mhm.
Rosemary Watola Tromer. And you did such a beautiful podcast. I hope everyone will
Oh, thank you.
re-listen or listen for the first time if they haven't heard that. But in there, one of the things that you two talked about that feels pertinent right now is that relationships can grow after someone has passed away,
Right.
after their physical form is gone. And that sounds a little woo-woo, but you two talked about it so beautifully. And when I was listening to that, I was like, yes, I believe that. Right.
Right, right. I know. Rosemary is just such a conduit for being able to realize like, oh, this relationship isn't over. It's just, grown in this different direction. Yeah, that was it, incredible, incredible.
And I think that that's, the reason it's coming to our minds right now is because we're talking again about joy as a practice and to really bring in, of course, it's much easier to talk about joy. Like I could give you 1,000 ways that I create fun and play and liveliness, but
Right.
those are a little bit easier, right, than what we're talking about, right, which is the yes, and we can bring joy when we're not feeling well or when we're in grief, or when we're confused, even when
Right.
we're angry. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Nobody,
yes,
yeah.
yes, definitely. Because, like we're not, when we're angry, we think, oh, we're angry. I've been angry for 3 days about this, or whatever it is. But it's not really. It's anger for like a couple of seconds, and then it morphs into all these things, and maybe it comes back to anger, but it's morphs into all these different things, and then comes around and being present for, oh, this is anger. Oh, this is sadness. Oh, and eventually you get to that there's funny moments in it, or there's a
Yes.
joy in it in some way. Oh, this is allowing me to release that. Oh, I can create a boundary where I don't have to keep hitting against the same situation, or the lesson in all of it, which I think is so hard to see sometimes, but in that lesson is such great joy. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, don't.
Even when you're talking, I'm loving how, I love how expressive you are. And it's making me think that it's like, if we could let go of our expectations of ourselves to keep
Right,
ourselves in this little box or that everything, then it's like, there's such a great energy in anger. Right.
right,
And
right.
to sometimes I just step back and I think about, I mean, first of all, like what a miracle. What a miracle. I'm talking to you. Like we're on this little box thing that's, you know, allows me to see you and talk to you that itself. But the fact that we're here on the planet at this moment in time together, we connected, we met out of 8 billion people, that's all a miracle. And it's a miracle that we're these creatures that feel so many things. I know, right? Like if
Yeah.
we allowed ourselves to not judge it, it's pretty awesome.
Right, right. Oh my gosh, you totally hit on something I want to explore a bit, the judgment of the feelings. So, yes, talk more about that because I think that's where we all get stuck because we're angry and then that's somehow wrong. And then, we just just I don't know, like a staircase going downwards. We're rolling down this hill of like, which inevitably, at least in my life, ends up at the bottom of this maybe a negative self talk or some thought I have about myself, and so talk more about that. I think that's so incredible.
Well, right, because, and I have to credit my spiritual teacher, Sherry Huber, for so much of this, obviously, as for many of us who have great spiritual teachers. But I can distinctly remember I used to have guidance with her when I was very depressed. And she would encourage me to do things, for instance, like, when you're feeling really dark, have a dark party, like just like go there, feel it. Like, and just like, what do you want to do? Do you want to get some like chocolate? Do you want to turn out all the lights and stomp around the room, or you want to cry? Like, but it was all suggestions on, like, she wasn't like, that's bad, you shouldn't, obviously, right? Like nobody, no spiritual teacher would ever say that. It's not, it's like, oh, that's what's happening for you. How can you be with that? How can you let it move through you in its natural course, not pretending it's not there, right? Back to your toxic positivity. But how can you, dare I say, celebrate those feelings? Which, me as a young woman, that was so far, I could not even imagine. But I did listen to her and I did try things. She also told me something that is another trick that I love. She had me label all the clothes in my closet. She did. She was like, what does the depressed person wear? What does the person who feels whimsical wear? What is the person who wants to pretend that she's, this, really smart professional person wear? Like, and it was fascinating. And then, of course, so it's like to put on the clothes of the other person. So when I was depressed, not to let myself grab the, yoga pants and sweatshirt, Right. So, I mean, things like that, those things really opened me up to exactly what we keep talking about, which is like, oh, when I'm depressed and I put on, for instance, I tend to wear a lot of what I feel like is joyful clothing, at least to me. I have a lot of that. And if I'm depressed and I put on joyful clothing, it's all there, right? Like, I mean, I very intentionally, when I decided to stay on the planet, I wear hats a lot because they remind me this is a party. This is a party I chose to stay at.
I love that. Oh, I'd never thought of labeling my clothing. And you do. Y'all, Sherry has the greatest style ever. She came to a book talk recently that I was at. I was like, oh my God, I love everything about what you were. You're great. That is so wonderful to put on the clothing of the other person and be with that. I don't know. It's kind of like duality, right? You put on this thing, which has a personality that comes with it that you're aware of, but yet inside you're this other thing. What is it like?
It's like, how do those people, come together and go out in the world?
Right.
And it is, and I'm not saying like not everybody is interested in clothing. I just find clothing to be a really fascinating thing that way. And also, for me, just a quick aside, I grew up, I didn't have any money. I could never keep up with fashions. That was part of my depression, was I was so unexpressed, so unexpressed. I mean, just like my clothes were so bland. And it's not how I felt inside, but I didn't know how to do anything. And when I found thrift stores, like that became like such an outlet for that girl who wanted to play. I think that's a part of it. So it's like not everybody plays that way with clothing, but everybody has clothing. And everyone, I talk about this a lot with people because it's an interesting path to joy, right? Like to open up your closet and watch, no, you can't wear that. That's too this, or that's too that, or, whatever self-talk we get when we want to try on, we want to put on something and something won't let us. That's fascinating to me.
Right. It's so true. And I think so many people really struggle with that, whether you're, into clothing or not into clothing, just the like, is this appropriate for me to wear? Will people approve of it? Am I too old for this? Am I too young for this? Am I too fill in the blank for this? Am I going to get in trouble at work if I wear this? All those things. What do I wear on a date? Look what goes into what do I wear on a date? I've never really, I've thought about this in terms of my own context because, I'm always kind of asking myself those questions in my mind, especially now that, as you get older, it's like, oh, can I not wear Converse anymore? I don't know. Do old people wear those shoes? You know what I mean? Like the whole, everything I normally wear has become a question mark, especially after COVID. I was like, I don't even know what my style is. Obviously it's not sweatpants and a sweatshirt, because I did not wear that routinely out in the world before, but I had forgotten after being, shut down in my house for years.
Yes.
What that actually was. And I had grown as a person. So, there's a gap there. Like, how do you, what do you tell people to do who are like, I don't know, like,
Well, I think it's the same thing. I mean, pretty much across the board, I'm always saying the same thing. I'm always like, it's like, look for the light, look for where you're curious, which in a lot of ways are the same things, right? Look for what sparkles, look for what glitters. I have a coaching group, and every once in a while, I'll say to them, go in your closet, find something that you just absolutely that sparkles for you that you're not allowed to wear, and wear it to our group, right?
Yeah.
Like, so
they wear it to the group.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So we do we practice. It's a practice, right? So we practice. What does it feel like to wear that crazy flower dress that you love, but you feel like it's not appropriate, or it's too much, or it's too young, or it's too old, right? Like all those things in bed. What is it like to wear it because you love it? Right. And I've done this with friends. I love to do this with friends too, where it's like, maybe there's an art exhibit is usually a good place to do this. And we'll do the same thing. Like, what's the next edge of your clothing that you're not quite allowed to wear out yet because you don't, you haven't yet become that person, but you want to, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like we wear things of like that person that, I mean, I think we already are them inside, but a lot of times I think a lot of things in our lives, we have to practice being it.
Right. It's so true, because we have these, persona, like this is my work persona. This is my persona with this group of friends,
right?
Whatever. We have all these personas. Here's my persona as a parent, and here's my, and sometimes, I really remember this so distinctly in my life of like, I don't know who I am anymore because I am living all these things to please others, people pleasing as God, went awry. And I'm like trying to get just some reinforcement of good job, well done. What I'm looking for that externally, right? And I think so many of us do, and we're just conditioned to do that. We're conditioned from childhood to do that. And but I always gravitate to these really wild clothes. And then I think like, I'll buy it. And then I'll think, what a huge mistake. Oh, like right now I have something in my closet that's like, I saw somebody wear it on a show and I was like, I love this. If I could find it, I would wear it. And then it appeared to me the following day on sale in my size, which never happened. So I bought it. I bought it 2 years ago. I have never worn it at all, but it's in my closet, and I look at it and go like, my authentic self is present in that.
Yes. Oh. If I ever get lucky enough to do another podcast with you, maybe you'll wear it.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Because
I will.
And I think that's the thing. Like, I don't know where I have a pink ukulele that also represents that same kind of thing. I always wanted to be a girl who played the ukulele, right? There's somewhere in me as a girl who plays the ukulele. Now, she's trying to find her way out, I finally found someone to teach me, and so, but I think it's things like that where it's like, we get those. I mean, I used to be, I used to love hats. I mean, I love hats still, but I didn't wear them, right? So I loved the 1920s, and I would just like look at the flapper girls and look at all those styles and be like, oh. And I talked to everybody. I'd say everyone who knew me was, and then finally I had this boyfriend. It was really funny because he was from New Jersey. So I had that like tough New Jersey guy. And he was like, got a freaking hat, put it on your head, wear it. You're going to feel dumb for a while, maybe a few weeks, maybe a couple months. You're going to feel stupid. And then you're going to be someone who wears hats. And I was like,
whoa,
it was such great advice.
Yeah. Right? Oh, that is so great. That's kind of in line of, you hear a lot of that in, like in business, like fake it till you make it, and all these kind of phrases that you're supposed to take into the business world. But you can also apply that to your wow. That's you
great. I mean, and it's funny because when I mentioned the ukulele, actually, this was a few years ago that I first attempted to learn how to play. But I took that pink ukulele on a women's retreat with me, and I only knew how to play C, which is pretty easy to play. But I took the ukulele and I felt so like carrying it around the airport. I pulled it out when people were coming into the retreat. I just kept playing C. And you know what, Juliana? It was so much fun. I was the girl who played the ukulele, right? Like, nice. And I mean, when we're talking about joy, this is really big, right? Like that our lives go by fast, so fast. I mean, right. And it's like, we're, a lot of us, well, someday. And then even that at some point could get dropped. Too old, too late, not for me. And to me, one of the best paths to joy is to give ourselves what we love, like unapologetically, and like, unless it's bad for us. Like,
well, yeah. Like within reason. But
within reason.
Yeah. I love that because I think you become a grown up and then you think you're not allowed play anymore.
Yes.
And, you know, I love to dress up as a kid. Like, even if it was like, I'm going to dress like a farmer and I'm going to, it's not necessarily I'm dressing like a queen or a fairy or any of those things, like practical things or whatever, but just that being able to put on a different persona and then play that out a little bit, and in this safe space where everybody's, we're gonna be farmers or whatever it is that we're gonna be. And we forget about this play. Everything serious art has to be grown up play. Like, yes, I learned tennis and then I play tennis at the club or, whatever it is that we're doing.
Yes.
Yeah. Even creativity is like, well, you don't do that anymore. You're a grown up. So no more drawing for you.
I know. And isn't it just something? I mean, I'm just flashing on and I want to bring her in because she had such an impact on me. I had a coaching client who throughout the years I would coach with her. She'd have creative projects that were really wonderful. And then I got an email from her and she said, it was something like, Lisa's farewell party. And I was like, oh, what is she up to now? That crazy girl, right?
Right.
Well, she had medical aid in dying. She had cancer. It was incurable. They couldn't operate. And I was blown away. The reason I'm telling you this, though, I had the privilege of being on a Zoom call with her in some of her final days. And she was learning to draw. And I sent her, so we both had the same children's drawing books. Like neither of us know how to draw. Right. And in her final days, she was playing like a child, drawing cats and turtles and, monkeys and colorful trees. And Joanna, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I felt like that was such a gift to me. I mean, there were so many gifts from her in those final days, but that childlike wonder and curiosity, and that it's like on the edge of her deathbed, learning something new, allowing herself to be playful. Holy cow, that was something.
Wow. That is amazing. That just to even find the space to celebrate in that way when you're facing this great unknown, right?
Right. And again, like, I feel like, that's kind of maybe our common theme today, right? It's that it's like, It's not this or that. It's all of it. Like, I'm sure, and I know this because we have many conversations. It's like, it wasn't all just this like, light, joyful, time, but she allowed herself to bring in wonder and play and joy and giggle. I mean, we giggled so much, during those calls. Yeah.
Wow, that's it. Yeah, it's right in that what we were talking about of she run the gamut of emotions, and you can't really stay unless there's a physical or chemical reason why you might be stuck somewhere. You're really kind of circling through things, and exactly the same when someone you love dies. You feel like, oh, I need to stay in this space of complete sadness all the time for whatever the mourning period that you've decided. And it's just, you feel I remember feeling guilty when we would laugh about something, that my mom was obviously kind of embarrassed about, but we were talking, reminiscing. And so it would come up and we would be like, well, we're talking about it with this great love and joy. It's not, oh my gosh, she was so ridiculous that she did this or that. It was more like,
of course,
and laugh, just that release of the laughter and the joy in that moment before you go back to, writing a eulogy or planning, doing those things, And
it's bringing up for me too, not just that, after someone has passed, but I have a book coming out later this year. And one of the people that I have a story from in there was diagnosed with I think it was a cancer and had one more year to live. He talks about, because he has like college age children. And he talks in there about that time of illness, that he was like, he made a conscious choice to live life as normally as he could, which meant laughter and joy and doing things and having quote unquote ordinary moments. And because he said, and I always think about this, he was like, what? Do we all just want to sit around and cry for the next year? Like what kind of a life is that? Not just for me in my last year, but for my children, right? Like, right. And I think, when you think about it that way, like, yes, it's terribly hard and sad when someone is, ill, terminally ill, especially. It's always hard. But what do you need the most in any time of your life, right? Mm-hmm. I remember when I had a kidney stone and my dear son sat next to me for an hour reading jokes from the internet. because I could, it was so incredibly painful. And like, I just think any kind of pain we're in, don't we want to be laughing at some point during it? I mean,
yeah, a relief,
a relief.
a break, a pause, a something, to just let it go for a minute before we pick it back up again.
Right. And we will pick it up again, or it will
Right.
pick us up.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. It will kind of come in waves and ebbs and flow, but to be able to allow ourselves to then have these moments where we can put that down and experience the opposite,
Yes.
And it's so, wow, that's so, it's just so incredible. And I don't think we give ourselves permission to be like that. And some of that, especially for me, I feel in all the times in my life where I felt very hopeless has been because I'm really forcing myself to stay in that space.
Me too. Me too,
Yeah.
Juliana. Me too. And I thought what you were going to say, which, you touched on a little bit earlier, but I think it's important to note those of us, I mean, I don't know in other places, but certainly Western culture is a fear mongering culture.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it. And of course, it's not 100%. But I was just talking to someone yesterday who just found out she's pregnant.
Mm.
And I'm so excited for her. She's so happy. But she kept saying, I know I shouldn't be telling anybody, or I know I shouldn't be too excited, or I know I shouldn't feel, or, and I'm like, be happy. This is a beautiful moment.
Right.
Of course, we all know anything can happen. I mean, it could happen any moment to any of us, and especially your dear little teeny tiny sprout of a baby. But we were talking about that it's like, we live in a culture that's kind of like, don't get too excited, don't get your hopes up. Don't,
yes.
Don't talk to strangers. Like
right.
All these places where joy can be found, like we're sort of taught to beware.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yes. So we're leery of. Right. Oh my gosh. Yes, that is so true. That is
because it's like, it seems to me that it's, I like to think it comes from a good place, although I know some of it's commercial, has to do with money, but I like to think that some of it comes from like, people don't want you to get hurt. Right. So they want you to stay at this, they want you to stay at this one little place where you're not too happy and you're not too sad, because, if you're too happy, you can fall and get sad. Right. But it's a little bit flatlining what we're often asked to be.
Yes, it's so true. It's just so rational, which I don't think is really the human spirit per se. I mean, rationality has its place. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing that at all. But to live our whole lives in the space of the rational sense of things, it's like I have a friend who just wrote her very first manuscript, and I was beta reading it for her. And she then got a deal, or is in the process of getting a contract and everything. And she keeps like downsizing that dream, right? Well, authors don't make money. Well, I shouldn't expect this. And I'm like, this is the moment. Dream big. Put that energy out there. Be all of it. Be amazing. Imagine what could truly, truly happen, because we are just so conditioned to dumb down our dreams into something that's rational, so that, I don't know, maybe we're afraid other people will think we're dumb if we dream, or we're not, we're afraid of the judgment that it might be like, you're too naive, you're too this, you're too that. But wasn't that one of the best things about being a kid?
I know, right?
Yes.
Like that unbridled enthusiasm.
Right. And the daydreams, and I'm going to be this when I grow up, and I'm going to this.
Right. And not censoring your own dreams. I love that you brought that up. Because I think, if we start looking all the different ways that censoring ourselves, censoring our dreams, censoring our feelings, like we've been talking about a lot.
Right.
Those are all like the opposite of joy practices, right?
Right. Oh gosh, yes.
That's what they're, my coaching group I told you about is called Ollie Ollie Oxen Free. Do you know that expression?
Yes.
It's safe to come out of hiding, right? And I love that, because it's like, it's a playful name, and it reminds me of being a child barefoot outside. But it's also the idea of, it's safe to come out of hiding. Whoever you are, whatever you're feeling, whatever big joy you have or big dreams, like, I want people to feel safe and celebrated. I mean, that's why a lot of my work is about, expressing to other people what you see in them and how you're celebrating those things, just like you did with your friend. Right. To me, what you did, that is a gift. That is a big gift to someone, to say like, hey, this is your moment. I'm here with you. I'm excited for you,
Right. Yeah. I think a lot about your work with bring celebration into everyday life and celebrate because so often we never celebrate anything. We just put the bar higher. Oh, I got this, but I really should be here. I really should be. And we never stop to celebrate anything, even though when we were kids, celebration was like, we looked forward to that. I mean, there's going to be some family party in 6 months. You're so excited about it. You're celebrating. It's going to be summer and I'm going to go to the pool, like, and now we don't do that. I just love that. Ever since I first got to know you, even though we were, we hadn't met in person or anything like that, that just such struck me so deeply. And that, yes, we should be celebrating all kinds of things, even if it's something extremely small, like, today I actually got up the nerve to write this email to somebody I admired or.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you brought that up. And, because one of the things is there's one layer where it's like we only allow ourselves to celebrate weddings or big anniversaries or graduating. There's that. Then there's the, which is wonderful. And I'm glad people do it, but celebrating wins, right? Celebrating when we accomplish something, which is fabulous. Please never stop that.
Right.
But my thing is like not attaching it always to an event or an accomplishment, but celebrate like right now, like I'm going to pause for a second and like, what a celebration this is. I am with this woman who is an author I respect. I love your work. You're fascinating. You're intelligent. You're fun to look at. You're fun to be with. I'm celebrating the moment. And to me, celebration is often when we do just that. We just put a frame around it. Like, oh, wait, here we are. This is a moment. You and I are here together. We're not always going to be. We may never be again, but we are right now,
Yeah.
And so I will often, and this is one of the easiest ways to bring joy or to celebrate is raising a glass, and it doesn't have to be alcohol. I don't believe in that at all. It could just be, I love sparkling water with lime, and like last night I raised a glass. My son has been working at camp and he's been bringing so much love and compassion to those little kids.
Nice.
I didn't even know that was, I suspected it was in him, but he's never gotten to be that way before. I just raised a glass and I was like, I love your heart. I love your heart. I'm so proud of you. And, it's just like finding a moment to make it sparkle.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And so many, at least I try to do that at least once a day.
You do?
Yes. Just something like, oh my gosh, this is so great, or this happened, or I talked to this person, or, anything. I like try to celebrate like, oh, I overcame a little fear here and I put myself out there, or, what it is.
Good for you.
Oh, well, I have you to thank for that because it's your work that really made me realize, like, I can celebrate lots of tiny little things, especially when you're going through something. Like you can celebrate that. Okay, like it's very hard not to get very down right now with just how the world is, politics.
Yes.
All the shifts that life is happening right now, the fastness of everything, the overwhelm, and to just take a pause to celebrate something actually slows it down for a minute and kind of reminds you of your balance.
Oh, so beautiful. And Rick Hansen, who wrote Buddha's Brain.
Yeah.
He says in that book, and I like to say this every time chance I get, he says that our brains are like Teflon for the good stuff and like Velcro for the hard stuff.
Right.
And it's just like, we don't have to feel bad about that. It's just a wiring. But he says we need to spend 17 seconds on something to, anchor in that good. And so by what you're doing, and I really encourage people to take a page from that book of it's a pause and it's a like, oh, isn't this great? Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you. Oh my goodness, look at that flower. And then be with it. Like really let it become part of our chemistry. I'm so grateful to him for that. I heard that many, many years ago. And I've always thought, it's not judgmental either,
Right. It's true though, because so many things can happen with that. Like how you were saying you were looking at the acacia tree out your window. I started kind of doing that too, because that little meditation practice of looking at something and not trying to define it in your mind, like not saying, oh, that's beautiful. Oh, that's this. Oh, whatever. I have now like nature as a whole new framework for me now, because, where you'd be like, oh, the same old tree, I walk outside, same old thing, same old blade of grass, but now everything has this presence that's different. I mean, some days I totally forget to do any of that, but when I do, I'm like, oh my God, everything's so miraculous. Like, how
Oh,
miraculous is flowers? How miraculous that acacia tree? How, wow. How
and
did this happen?
how miraculous you are to be this like living being practicing that, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, same to you. I mean, really, it's like, yeah, it's hard some days, right? But I feel like for our mental health, we should all take a pause for something beautiful, something joyous, something amazing. I mean, multiple times a day. But if it's, I could see how sometimes it's very hard to do that for even 2 seconds during any particular day when things are really rough. But
But to,
being able to do that helps you like this too will end. There's a
yeah,
whole nother side. What were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
well, I just love that. I'm sorry. I got so excited when you were saying that because I got so excited because I think oftentimes, again, it goes back to what we've been saying, which is giving people permission. And I hope people hear it this way, that it's permission in spite of anything hard or sad or, grief filled or angry that's happening. And there is a lot going on. A lot of people are having a
Right.
really hard time in spite of that. And maybe even because of that, we need permission to focus on the beauty, the joy, the love. And that sounds really cliche, but the reason it's cliche is I think because it's such a truth. It's such a
Right.
truth. It's
Right.
medicine for us human beings. And I often, whenever I facilitate any kind of group, I like to start by asking people, did you see something beautiful today? Did you feel joyful? Did you experience something that felt like love? And you can watch everyone in the room as each person shares how it lifts the
Mhm.
others,
Right.
right?
Yes.
When you talked about your Converse shoes, you better not stop wearing those. When you talked about your Converse shoes, I felt a little bit like, ooh, I love Converse shoes and I
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
them and I felt happy. And we do that for each other, right? The things
Yeah.
we love, the beauty we see, when we share it, it is such a palpable gift to others.
So true. So true. Yeah, we all have to um mirror that for others in some way, for ourselves, but also for other people, to be in that community with one another where, yes, this is hard. Today is hard. This is hard. This moment is hard. But also we have each other. But also this.
But
But
also this, I
yeah,
love that. And also this, right? And also this. I love
yes.
that. I have a wonderful outdoor Zumba class I go to a couple times a week. The teacher is amazingly just a wonderful person. And there's been a lot of hard times. There's been a lot of hard times in the world. And sometimes we've been in class the next day after there's been some really hard news, and she will consciously talk about it. Hard night last night, but here we are. And here we are together, those of us lucky enough to be able to move and jump and, swing
Right.
our hips and, holler a little. It's that like, yeah, that's hard. And, we have this moment because we could all gather at dance and be depressed the next day, but what does that do?
Right. 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 There is a balance. There is we need to make sure we stay balanced during hard times, or else, we all know people who have kind of become hardened and are a little bit grumpy about how the world is, and they become hard to hang out with, right? It becomes hard to spend a lot of time with them because it's such a downer. We like that SNL skit of Debbie Downer.
Oh, Debbie,
Yeah. Like that's a pun on the whole situation, but and none of us want to be that person, but we've lost our balance somehow. And just be
right.
mindful of that.
I love that you've used the word balance a number of times. It's so important, right? Because it's like, that is true. None of us want to be that person. And just to balance it out, right? One of the reasons that and I know many people do this when they're feeling like they can't be here on the planet anymore. I'm
Right.
such a downer. People don't want to be, I don't want to bring people down, I blah, blah, blah. And so
Right.
it's like, it's also that. Like I went the other way. A lot of people never even knew I was depressed, right? Because I was really good at being what I call her cardboard Sherry, right? I
Right.
could put her out in the world and she could laugh and say all the right things. And so I was afraid to go the other direction, which is to say, like, I'm having a hard time. Right. So you're right. It's always that balance. And I hope that we've conveyed that. I hope that we haven't been too like, oh, just be happy or,
Right. 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 No, yeah, you can you can have moments of joy, but you can hold it all. Like we were saying at the beginning, you can hold it all. And that's, I think, really what life is, right? It's holding it all and still thinking like, wow, this is some days I like, okay, this is really horrible, but also, you know, what, wow, I'm moving through the world and this is what's
Yeah.
presented itself. And why is that? Do we need to look as a collective at something larger, which I think is really on everyone's mind these days, but also, if we funneled it down to ourselves, how do we show up in this space of great challenge, and what are we going to do here, and what is our vision, not necessarily, and how are we going to show up for that? And what is that? And so much of that, joy kind of refuels you to go to the next place, whereas pain and suffering often take the fuel,
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Yes, I love that. Because it's true. Like, and I was just thinking that when you were asking those beautiful questions, and I hope people might go back and pause and listen to those questions. And for me, one of the things that I feel called to do in times like this, especially, but throughout my life, I love bringing joy to strangers, like especially anonymous joy. And
Right, right.
it's just like one of the things that is really important to me because, first of all, I love, the non-separation. And I love the non-expectation of anything in return. And I feel like also that, and you know this, I know because you're a part of some of those things that I do. But that it's a way of evening the playing field out there of like everyone deserves joy, everyone does. And
Right.
whatever we can do when we have the energy, we don't always have it. Maybe sometimes we need to be the recipients. But I always say, to people in my own community, when you have the energy, please be the light, give the light, because there are a
Yeah.
lot of people who need it.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think that, um, I was just re-listening to Tara Branch's Radical Acceptance. And I was at the chapter where she is talking about how if we don't see people as real, then we can so easily decide they aren't worthy of certain things, and she's really having that othering conversation way before we all started doing it as part of a DEI training or practice, and but it's I think that there's a lot woven into uh, to what you're saying there, in that if we see people as real, as like everyone is worthy, everyone should have some joy regardless. Like, it's not saying what they did or what they're doing is right, or I agree with it, or but what what brought them there? They weren't born that,
Yes,
you know
right.
it's so hard to remember that. I know this is like a total tangent,
I
but
know.
you said something that kind of brought it out to me, but it's like, it's just, I'm glad
Sorry.
you brought that up, because it's important to remember that even though some people are doing some really, really hard things to understand, but that I probably never truly understand how they got there and why they're doing those things. But to find that little bit of compassion for them, not saying what they're doing is good, but
Exactly.
how'd you get
Yeah.
there?
And I think that is not at all outside of our conversation because one of the things that zaps our joy is othering or is that separation. It is that like, I can't believe she's like that. How'd she get back? I hate her. It's
Right.
that. And I just a quick story again, because I was saying, I'm thinking of my son again, because he's working at a camp and sometimes the kids are really mean to the other ones, right? Like we
Yeah.
all might remember this.
Right.
Children are not always. And, sometimes he started last night. He was like, oh, I'm so mad at so and so who, sweet little girl, and something happened to her and he was so mean to her. And then Kane stopped, my son's Kane, and he stopped and he said, but you know what? Like, I think there's probably some things going on at home, like, and his amount of like being able to look with compassion to see like that little guy probably didn't come onto the planet like that. And hasn't been a lot of years, but something's happened to him. And it's easier when it's children where you could kind of say like, oh man, that kid's got it rough at home. Poor thing. How can we support him? How can we love him extra?
Right.
But when that little kid is, in politics that we don't like or
Right.
doing things that it's a lot harder, but I think the same it applies. If we feel hate, if we feel like we want to just like throw violence back at them, it doesn't do much for anybody.
Right. Right. And that ability to kind of find empathy, like your son was doing for this child, there in the empathy, there there can be these other positive emotions, right, in there, like, but you don't get to them if you immediately think, oh, the person that cut you off in traffic is just
Right.
a jerk and they're out to get you and they're mad at you for some reason. And you create this whole story that doesn't even necessarily exist about this person who cut you off in traffic, instead of being like, wow, I wonder if that person is on their way to an emergency or, late for a really important job interview and they've been looking for a job for 8 months, or
Yeah.
tell this total other story,
I know. I often think, because I've been that person, and that's one of the first things I always, getting cut off in traffic. I can remember a time I had a terrible migraine and I was just trying to get home. Like, I used to get awful migraines, where you're sort of like half, out of it. I just had to get home and I inadvertently cut someone off. And I was like, it was too late. I couldn't
Yeah, sorry.
There's never any way. But I always think of that when someone cuts me off. I'm like, I was that person.
Right.
I didn't mean it. I know it had nothing to do with them,
Right. We've all been that person, We've all been that person that needs grace.
Yes.
And we've all been that person that's made a horrible mistake.
Yes.
We've all been there. And if we can live in that empathy, I think, for one another and compassion, then there are these, we open it up to something richer, like maybe even a friendship or a meeting or something can come out of that, or just being able to have grace for yourself in that moment. Yes. I've been there, that's a moment of joy.
I love that, because I was just thinking that when you said it, that what happens when I'm blaming you, then when I do that thing, I have to blame, well, I don't have to, but it seems like what happens is, like, I hate you for that thing. I do it. Then I get the self-hate, right? Because that's
exactly
a hateful thing. Rather than when I give you grace, then I'm a little more likely to give myself that grace.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all part of that, I think, joyful life. Cultivating that is allowing for that space. And then you don't have to define yourself. You don't have to walk around with as much shame as you normally would, or that self-hatred and all those other things. And, waking up one day and realizing, like, I don't know who I am because I've been defending myself for such a long period of time,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to leave some moments to talk about your new project, even though I could talk about this other stuff all
I know.
I
love talking to you. You're so great.
I know we can have like a marathon kind of conversation sometime, but for now, I want to switch gears and talk about your newest project, which I think is so interesting. So do you want to describe it a little bit for us?
Yeah. So, my life's work is around celebration, and it's appreciating the people we love. And it's, around creative gift giving that shows people why they're loved. And my next project is an end of life planner. And for a lot of people, they're like, what? What is that? What do you mean you're, an end of life planner? And, for those people who may not know, so there's a lot of planners out there where you can, here's where my will is. Here's where my advanced healthcare directive is. Here's where I keep my passwords to my computer. Here's where the extra car keys are. Well, those sort of nuts and bolts things that it could be very helpful to people when we pass away. Mm-hmm. And those are fantastic. And I commend anyone who has ever done any of that. However, we have a mutual editor and publisher, Brenda, who invited me to make to write an end of life planner that is a little different. And we talked a lot about it, and we decided that what we wanted to do was to do one of those. Like, I noticed in those, like, there's usually not a voice. There's not usually, it's kind of just like, do this. And it's not that easy to look at the end of your life, no matter who you are, even for a lot of us who've thought about it a lot. And so what I set out to do, and I hope I did, was to create an end of life planner that is joyful. I mean, here's what we're talking about, right? How do you bring joy into a process that is hard and often grim? And a lot of people might even see it as morbid. And, and so my intent, just like everything we've been talking about today, was to be a friendly companion, a friendly voice, someone that they can practice with. Like, let's just jump into this and be here together. And the first half of the book is all of those nuts and bolts, which are really super important. And the second half of the book is more about leaving what I call a love list behind for people that we love. So making sure that we tell people why we love them, leaving behind the stories of our lives, cleaning up our relationships. And all of it is, to me, in the same container of one of the best gifts we can ever give people, right? It's like when someone passes away and they have not done any of these plans, there is so much suffering for next of kin. I mean, many people listening to this may have experienced that, whether it's stuff that they have to get rid of, a house full of things that they don't know what matters or not, or what mattered to the people they love, or not being able to find accounts, or not knowing if the person wants to be cremated or buried. I mean, endless. There are endless ways that people can, be filled with extra grief when someone dies. So to me, I'm so excited about it because it's really like the last loving gift that we give someone.
Right. Right. I actually, having gone through that with both of my folks, I would so appreciate that because even though like my mother knew she was passing, she decided to not have a second round of chemo and just, she was ready. I'm ready. I
Yeah.
want to go. It was
Yeah.
very, very hard on so many people. And she kept having to have that conversation over and over again with people, and I know that kind of took a toll and it was really hard. It was hard to have those conversations and it was hard to be in that place. And even though she had all of her life planned in the way of like, I have this will, I have these things, this is, here are some things I want in my ceremony,
Yeah.
those types of nuts and bolts, as you're saying. But, she used to wake up, my sister and I would watch towards the end of her life. Someone was with her most of the time and she was very together, very with it. And we traded off. And she would wake up in the middle of the night and have these, I have a last minute project. I have something I need to clear up. You have to call so-and-so and let me talk to them on the phone. Or I need to tell
Wow.
you that, like, one of the things she told me was like, I know I was never 2 a.m, and I'm sitting in this recliner next to her bed. And she's like, you have to come over here right now. And then it was, like I just need to tell you, I've never told you this before, but I never said certain things to you just because I knew you were strong enough to take it. And I knew this other person over here needed more of a pep talk. So I did that with them and I didn't do that with you. And I'm sorry,
Wow.
and it would be these, and I only feel like I know that stuff because we were watching her, we were taking turns and she had these, things, go call her sister at 3 a.m. and have her drive down here because she has something to say. And
Wow.
yeah. And then she was really doing that work that you're talking about.
She was.
In that moment of, and I could see how incredibly important it was. Like, I can't leave until this happens, and it's just,
Wow.
I think that part of what you're talking about with your work is, oh my, it's just so important in so many ways. And we get really caught up in the nuts and bolts, like you're saying, and we also don't want to talk about it.
Right.
So this gives a framework too, I talk about that. The whole second half of my book is like, how do you talk to people about hard things? Right.
I know. I love that part of I know.
Yeah. And we don't have any skills for that. Like, I remember my mom would talk to me about that. I would be like, what do I say here? Do I say something like, no, nothing's going to happen? Do I say, I hear you, or do I say, I'll support you, what you need? I didn't have any of that language. Right. But if you're writing these love letters and this kind of whole emotional aspect of dying, it's actually a wonderful invite for people to engage in that conversation with you while you're crafting those things, like,
Yeah.
when you were talking about it, I was like, I could have imagined sitting with my mom in her bed, going over those things and, and, and talking about it and having that space where I don't necessarily have the language for communicating like in this way, but I have this piece of paper with stuff on it that is giving me that space to talk about it. I just think that's a huge gift, Sherry. That's a huge, huge gift.
Well, and I love your story about your mom, and I love that you can see the gift in it. And you can also, which you're pointing to, and this is the thing that to me, it's like it is a gift to ourselves over and over again. The earlier in our lives we do this, that I've walked through not all, but many of these pieces, and I'll go back and redo them, over and over again. But the more that I do these, the more I'm picking up the phone. Oh my gosh, I haven't talked to Tom in so long. What would happen if something happened to me tomorrow and I hadn't called him in 6 months? Or,
Right.
I never apologized to my mom for XYZ.
Right.
And those things, there's a lot of them, right? Like there's a lot of things in our life that we might want to mend or clean up or,
Right.
or just people we want to say more love to. And I find that for me, and I think this is why what I love about the book is that it's a book for people who might be planning their end of life, but it's also a book for the children of those people or the next of kin because they can give it to someone. But I also like that it's the double entendre of gift, right? It's a gift It's the last loving gift we can give to someone. And it's the biggest gift we can give ourselves. To be that intentional and thoughtful about who we are, how we're living our lives, because you can't plan an end of life without considering how we're living our lives.
Right.
And
regrets, things like that. Yes. Which,
exactly.
yeah, that was exactly the impetus of my mom's late night phone calls and
Right.
whatnot, was just like, I have to set this straight. And I think that work that you're talking about also, I mean, I don't know, I imagine makes the journey you're about to go on just a little more understandable, or just a little, just you can be a little bit more with it than if you're,
yes,
oh my God, I'm this big unknown. I don't know what this is. I'm questioning everything now. I have these regrets. I mean, I don't, that experience must be, I don't even have words for it, like it's just such an unknown and such a scary moment. And yeah, kind of what you're talking about is creating this pathway where, even though it's going to be scary, I'm sure you're, death is scary. That's how we think about it. But it just makes it a little bit more, you can see a little bit further down that road than you could if you did nothing at all,
Yes. And it's the same exact conversation we've been having about everything else, that it's like, of course it's scary. Of course it brings up all kinds of hard feelings. And in the midst of it, I'm hoping people can imagine, what is it like to talk? I've had some amazing conversations with my son and with my nieces. I learned things about them through my own planning, right? That it's like what they value, what's important to them, what they might need after I've gone, after I passed away, both, material things or emotional.
Right.
Oh, that's really, and it's also just so real, because it's like, then it's enabling everyone around us to be a part of these kinds of conversations that are really important.
Right. Yes. Yes. And to just give it space to happen. I imagine there's a lot of people who would like to have those kinds of conversations, but they don't know how to create that
Exactly.
space, and to just have that in the present, would be such an incredible gift.
And it's such a permission slip. I think this goes back to, again, I love this because it's all tying in together. We didn't plan this, of course, but but it's that permission slip that, allowing ourselves to go through thinking about end of life, planning for it, looking at some of these different pieces over a lot of time allows us to process the feelings. It's fabulous if someone who's in their 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, is going to pick up one of these books. But what I'd really love for people to do, give yourself the space so that you can feel everything that might come up around various parts of it. And it allows us, I mean, I never thought of this before, but now that I'm saying it out loud, right? In some ways, it's a form of therapy and coaching, both all in one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking, because I am excited, and it is coming out later this year, and I'm hoping to have some more conversations with you in various ways.
Yes, I hope so. I really, really, really look forward to that. And you don't have a drop date yet, right? For your book, you're still.
Yeah, I'm hoping for, fingers crossed, we're looking at around the Day of the Dead, which for people who may or may not know, the Day of the Dead, I think it's a holiday where people honor those who have passed away, but they also do it in kind of a playful, colorful way. And to me, that's the tone of the book. It's very respectful. It's very much full of love and honoring. And it's got some color and a little skeletons dancing kind of feel to it.
Nice. Oh, that's great. What is the title? Do you know?
Yes. So it's called The Love List of a Lifetime.
Oh.
And that's a play on words, because one of the chapters is about the love list, which is a one-of-a-kind gift that doesn't cost a thing to do, where you make a list of all the specific reasons you love someone and you tell them that. And so there's a whole chapter on that. That's sort of the cornerstone of my work. And also, it's a love list because there's quite a long list of things that we might want to do in order to prepare for end of life. So that is a love list of a lifetime to do.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Yes, we'll have to have many more conversations. I can't wait to see it in its real, true self.
Yay.
It's so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all this incredible wisdom with us about joy and being present in your life, and having those hard conversations around end of life. So, so important. I celebrate you. I raise it up to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, here to you. Juliana, before we close out, thank you. Thank you. Every conversation I've heard that you have done, by whether it's with yourself or with another person, you bring so much compassion and mindfulness and love and joy. I really appreciate you. So
Thank you.
To you.
Thank you. Back
Yay.
at you, to you.
Yay.
All right.
Take good
Thank
care.
you. You too.
Thank you so much, Sherry, for being on the podcast. What a great conversation. If you know somebody who might benefit from the conversation, please share it with them and like and subscribe. Thank you so much for being here. And as always, my dear friends, know that I love you and I care about you. You're not alone, and we can all do this together in community. Take good care.